Hey guys, my name's Khadroth, and today we're going to be talking to you about Shishoufest Round 2. Now, this round is going to be a lot easier. The 90 and the 90 plus should be pretty approachable for most people, and again, I think you guys should have some decent options for this, especially compared to Round 1, which seemed especially punishing in the terms of 90 plus. So hopefully we have some good stuff for you guys. If you want to see my breakdown as to what the points are for doing 90 versus 90 plus and sort of the merits of each of those, definitely check out the first video from round 1. That'll help you out because I go over that all at the beginning here. But let's go ahead and talk about the nodes. All right, so here's going to be our level 90 Lotto currency node. Again, it's pretty standard. It's going to be a 333 layout. This time it's going to be all Lancers. So if you have a nice AoE saber, you guys should be pretty good for this. There's definitely other options that we can use though, and we're going to go over those. Again, I don't think it's going to be that bad. Just always be careful about the high health enemies in each wave. Again, that's going to be sort of your concerns. Looking at this, you will get both feathers and wine from this. I think wine's one of those resources that while you could need it, it's not needed in huge droves. And remember guys, feathers are actually going to be in our Lotto boxes this time around. So this one might not be the best to farm from a mat standpoint. You might want to do this if maybe the 90 plus is not that great for you because maybe you don't have, say, again, really good casters or something like that. But again, that is going to be that one. It's going to be just as efficient currency wise as the 90 plus. So just understand that the differences and reasons for doing the 90 plus are that you can get a little bit more of sort of the extracurricular stuff. If you want to see a breakdown of that, go watch the first video. Now here's going to be our 90 plus node. This one is going to definitely be a little odd. It's going to be 132 layout with it being all assassins. So at least this one, unlike round 1, isn't mixed class. That should make this a lot more doable for people. Again, I think the big concern here is you're probably going to need something single target to help you guys with the moving runway. Thankfully, there are a lot of options there. You could possibly make someone like Medea work here, and I'm actually going to show a graph for you guys here as to like which ones kind of work and how, but do understand maybe not the best there with Medea. She's got an AoE modifier, and that's kind of why she ends up being low. So from a pure free-to-play perspective, that one might not be that good, but there's definitely some other really good options that work here. Looking at the middle wave there, the middle wave is not really a problem. In fact, this is a really good setup for someone to be able to loop against, and because it's got 3 enemies, they're all low health, you can get a lot of overkill here. This one's definitely really nice, especially if you can manage to make someone work with Castoria. And then the final wave here with fashion model and fashion coordinator, definitely going to be a little bit hairy there with a 200k assassin, but still not as bad as the first round, which had even more. So like I said, this one's definitely a lot better in node structure. Again here, looking at the materials that drop, you've got mirrors, which are at least semi-rare, and then you've got dust, and dust hasn't been in a Lotto in almost 2 years now. So this is actually a really good thing that you're going to be able to at least grind some out, because it's not part of the boxes here, and you're not going to see it in a box until I think Cardamas later this year. All right, so first up for our 90 node here, again, you guys can see we're actually going to be using a K-scope Artoria here, just in P1, again with double waver and Reines. You can definitely use double Reines here. That will be a little bit more damage, but we tried to do as easy as possible on the requirements for you guys, since a lot of people can have a waiver of their own. We figured that would be ideal. But yes, you would still need to potentially have a Reines of your own, so that is going to be a problem, but it's just up to you as to whatever you can find easier on support. If you can find the Reines easier, that'll be a thing. If we get the triple supports waiver, certainly won't be hard. We just tried to go with as low as possible to kind of, again, display, hey, look at that. Even with waiver, you guys still only have a little bit of health remaining on the Hydra and a little bit on Proto-Coup. So you guys should be good even at NP1 on this. It's a relatively stable, easy comp. All right, for our party structure here, let's go ahead and start out with a front line of Waver, Saber, Reines, and then the other Waver in the back line. So for our turn order, on turn 1, let's go ahead and activate Saber's skill 1, her Charisma, and then go ahead and use Reines' skill 2 on Saber to get her to full charge and fire off that first NP, easily handling the wave. Now on turn 2, let's go ahead and use Reines' skill 1 and 3 on Saber, and then go ahead and use all the waiver skills on Saber. That right there should get her charged to full, and you should be good. Fire off the NP, and again, only watch out for the Hydra with about 11k HP remaining. You guys should be able to card that out pretty easily though. Now in turn 3, let's go ahead and Plugsuit out the Reines for Waver and bring in the other one on the back line using all of his skills then there on Saber. That should get her back to 70% charge. And then go ahead and use Saber's second and third skills to charge her up to full and give her the mana burst. Pop the Plugsuit attack buff now, and then go ahead and fire Saber's NP, and you should be good. Right now here we've got our quick variant of the 90 nodes. Again, you guys are going to be using a K-scope with a maxed append on Dantes. Because of the fact that we're using an NP1 here, because that's all we really need for damage, we're going to then need to get him to bond 6 at least in order to have this append unlocked in order to level it all the way up. This is going to be using double Scotty and Fragment of 2004, so that at least is going to make this very quick and nice. You don't have to use Plugsuit here. It's just going to be very quick and fluid. So if you are stuck sort of on the 90 node and you're having to do 5 CE, this isn't the end of the world. It just might be one of those things where it's like, hey, I just want to go fast at that point. And here you go. This will be the comp for you. Again, we are going to require Dantes' first 2 skills at 10. We are going to require max Scotty skills, again, just for the charge and refundability. But again, we shouldn't have too much of an issue here, especially on the first 2 waves, with him easily sort of refunding past 50. The only things that are going to remain alive are going to be the Hydra here in wave 2 and Proto-Coup here in wave 3. Both of them not too bad there, but the Hydra might be the only thing you would have any concern with, and I still think at 13.8k you can easily cart that one down. Alright, so for our turn order here, let's start out in turn 1 by doing both Scotty skill 1s. Those are the quick ups on Dantes. And then go ahead and do Dantes' skill 2, the NP gain, to help him have enough to get back to 50%. Fire off the NP here and you'll easily handle wave 1. Now in wave 2, let's go ahead and use Scotty's skill 3. Again, this should get him the requisite charge to get back to full. Go ahead and use the 2004 Mystic Code's NP gen buff on Dantes here, and then fire off the NP with only the Hydra living with about 14k max. So again, just be careful, you might have to card here. Now in turn 3, let's go ahead and use both of the remaining Scotty skill 2s, those are the defense downs, and then go ahead and use the last remaining Scotty skill 3 on Dantes to get him back to full again. From here, go ahead and pop Dantes' skill 1, the attack up, and then go ahead and pop the 2004's NP damage buff on Dantes. Fire off the NP from Dantes, and again, Proto-Coup will only live about 10% of the time with that worst 3.5k HP remaining. Alright, now this is going to be the Zerkerlot, aka Berserker Lancelot version of the comp that we just ran. Again, this is going to be an option for those of you guys, maybe if you don't get Castoria, maybe you're stuck doing 5 CE on the 90 for whatever reason. And again, this one can work. The only issue here is we are going to be using NP2 of him as opposed to NP1 with Dantes. Again, this is mostly going to be both refund and damage issues here. If you step him down to NP1, he's definitely going to have a lot more health remaining on Proto-Coup. It's up to you if you want to try that. It might work, it just might not, so be careful. That's sort of going to be our recommendation. We are saying, hey, have a Fragment 2004 at rank 10. You might be able to squeeze by with a little less, just be careful. We are going to be doing K-Scope with a maxed append here. Again, if you have a Super Scope, that can certainly work, but the K-Scope with the max append is sort of the most free-to-play variant that we can do. You understand, at NP2 then, you should have the capability of at least getting close to this, but you might have to bond your Zerkerlot a little bit more. But if you guys have been using them over the past couple years, that one shouldn't be too bad for you. Again, it'll just be up to you to sort of get this done before the Lotto comes out. But I do think this can be a very fluid, very quick comp for you, pun intended. Right now, for our turn order here, we're going to start out by popping both of Scotty's skill 1s on Zerkerlot. That should get him the quick up that he needs, and then go ahead and use the Fragment of 2004's NP gen buff on Zerkerlot right here, since the first wave is very low and easy to handle. Fire off Zerkerlot's NP, and again, should be fine. Now here for turn 2, let's go ahead and use Zerkerlot's skill 3. This will be his NP gen buff. Go ahead and use the Scotty skill 3 on him now to get him charged to full, and then fire off Zerkerlot's NP again. And now in turn 3, let's go ahead and use the last remaining Scotty skill 3 to charge Zerkerlot back to full again. Use both Scotty skill 2s, those are the defense downs, and then use the 2004's NP damage buff on your Zerkerlot, and you should be good to fire off the last NP. And again, no concerns here as everything dies clean. All right, now that we're at the arts options, we're actually going to go in order of worst to easiest. And you might be thinking, well, Kat, I'm seeing Space Ishtar on the screen. How can this be worst? It's just worse because it's going to require an MP2 of an SSR, especially one that you guys can't get anymore. So that's why. Again, this is actually pretty fluid. It actually works really well. Again, all these arts comps, they're sort of the easy win button for this entire Lotto and should be, especially going forward because of Castoria. So again, this is going to be 6 CE. We are going to be using Fragment of 2004 here with double Castoria. We are going to require rank 10 skills and a rank 10 mystic code here for this, especially with Space Ishtar. This is going to be important because again, charge skills and stuff like that and having enough refund. But we are requiring NP2 because we assume failure of the third skill. So what that means is she doesn't get her arts proc, she doesn't get it for damage, and thus this is the way to make sure that it's even. You guys can try to get away with this at MP1, but I probably don't recommend it because you guys can see the average is floating just above the actual health pool, so it would drop significantly if you guys tried to step down to MP1. But it's up to you. Space Ishtar can definitely card hard, especially with that extra attack benefit that she gets on the back end of her Noble Phantasm. So it's just up to you to determine what you want to do here. I think this is a pretty fluid comp, definitely easy, especially if you guys have a well invested in Space Ishtar and you just don't want to do the 90 plus node. This one's 6 CE, it'll be fast and nice. All right, now for the turn order here, let's start out turn 1 by using all Castoria skills on Space Ishtar. Yes, all from both of them. That will get you all the requisite charge that you need. Now let's go ahead and use the Fragment 2004's NP Gen buff on Space Ishtar, and let's go ahead and pop Space Ishtar's skill 1 here. Should get her everything she needs, fire off the NP, and she'll refund back to full from this. Now in turn 2, there's nothing you need to do, so let's just go ahead and NP with Space Ishtar one more time. And now that you've reached turn 3, let's go ahead and use Space Ishtar's second and third skills. Make sure you select arts with the second skill, don't blunder that one. And go ahead and make sure you use the 2004's NP damage buff on Space Ishtar here. And you should be good to NP one last time. Hopefully you got the arts proc and then you handle it clean, but if you didn't, Proto Cool live at worst 27% of the time with 9k HP. All right, for our next one here, this is going to be using a NP2 Beat Saber Tomoe, aka Tomoe Summer here. So she is an AoE art saber. She doesn't have any charge in her kit, but her refund's actually pretty good. The issue at play here is that her arts up is only a 1-turn skill. We did assume rank 10 of that because we are actually going to use that on turn 2. But you guys actually can do some stuff here where if you have her mana loading, you can switch the skill order around and you can actually manage to pop the arts up on turn 3. Again, we sort of sided with a lesser requirement here and said, hey, we'll go ahead and do that, especially because as far as I'm concerned, while we don't require any skill levels on the first or the third skill, both of those are respectively her Star Bomb on turn 3, or sorry, skill 3, and then her crit up on skill 1. So these are really, really nice. And again, they will absolutely help you if you have any health remaining on wave 3 here. So at 21k, I feel pretty confident. I have seen Tomoe Saber in action. I actually have used her quite a bit on my JP account. And I can flat out tell you guys she'll easily handle anything as long as she gets the cards. So again, I hope you guys like girls with big crits because I certainly do, and Tomoe Saber will absolutely handle this. The issue at play here is, yeah, this is going to be a little bit slower than some of the other comps because we're using Plugsuit and we're using Waiver. So that will be another issue. You are going to have your own Castoria. But again, I think this comp, especially if you have a nice Tomoe Saber and you really like her, go ahead, go for it. It should be nice and easy, very fluid. All right, for our party structure here, let's start out with a front line of double Castoria and Tomoe Saber with Waiver on the back line. All right, now for the turn order on turn 1, let's go ahead and use all of both Castoria's skills on Tomoe Saber. That should get her all the charge that she needs, so go ahead and fire off the Tomoe NP when ready, and you'll easily handle wave 1 and refund right back to about 78%, which is kind of annoying. All right, now in turn 2, let's go ahead and Plugsuit in Waiver for one of the Castorias, and then go ahead and use Waiver's skill 1 on Tomoe. That should bring her up to full. Go ahead and pop Tomoe's skill 2 right now. That is the arts up. I know it's a little unintuitive, but she's going to need it for the refund, so let's go ahead and do that, and then NP. Now in turn 3, let's go ahead and use Waver skill 2 and 3. That should get him the attack up on Tomoe. Go ahead and use the Plugsuit attack buff now as well, and then go ahead and fire off Tomoe's NP. Again, you should handle this pretty easily, especially if you think you're going to lowball because maybe you only have the NP2. Maybe pop her first and third skill to help out with carding. All right, now we have the Musashi Berserker comp. This one's going to be another really easy, really fluid one. It's just like the Space Ishtar one, only now we only require an NP1 Musashi. Because she deals effective damage, she doesn't have any sort of chance to fail with her third skill, so this makes this plotting out really a lot easier on people. It is going to be double Artoria, so you will have to have your own, and we are using Fragment of 2004, but you might be able to get away with other other Mystic codes. Just up to you. Again, 6 CE, so very nice and fluid, very quick and easy, very low party requirements. We are requiring rank 10 on Musashi's second and third skills. That's the NP Gen from extra hits, as well as the damage from the third skill there, respectively. Right now, for the turn order, let's go ahead and start out on turn 1 by using all of both Artoria's skills on Musashi. That should get her up to full charge and have everything that she needs. Go ahead and pop Musashi's skill 2 as well to help out with the NP gen and fire off the NP, and she will refund back to 100%. Now in turn 2 here, let's go ahead and use the 2004's NP gen buff on Musashi, fire off the NP one last time. Only the Hydra will live about 73% of the time, with at most 11.4k HP remaining. Should be easily cardable, and again, you should refund back to 100%. Now in turn 3 here, let's go ahead and use Musashi's skill 3 to get her the damage up that she needs. Use the 2004's NP damage buff on Musashi, and then go ahead and fire off the NP one last time from her, and she'll actually clean clear this wave 100% of the time, making it really easy. And last but not least, the ultimate in free-to-play technology. Again, this is going to be the easiest comp that we think people can do because we're going to be using Jason. Everybody has Jason. You should all be able to get him to NP5, and we require nothing on his skills. The reason for this is, again, that the lower the star you are as a unit in this event, the higher the damage bonus you get. And it doesn't really mean that Jason's necessarily going to outpace, say, a SSR or something like that, but it does mean that he gets a nice bump up to be almost the equivalent of one. And again, as you guys can see, he is going to be pretty flawless in how he handles the node, with only Proto-Ku on the final wave here having any health remaining, and at 7k that should be easily cardable no matter who you have in the party. Again, his refund is actually stellar because Jason gets overcharge that increases his arts up for 3 turns, so he actually gets stronger in a loop. The issue with Jason is always damage output more than anything, with him being a 1-star, so having the damage bonus in the event, and especially due to the fact that this node's requirements in terms of health values aren't that bad, double Artoria waiver just sort of makes this happen, and it works and it's easy. So the only real requirement here will be having your own Artoria, and then you should be able to 6 CE this. This is the easiest comp that we could think of to do this node. So again, yeah, we require rank 10 skills on pretty much everyone there. Actually, waiver doesn't really need anything other than rank 10 on his third skill, but still, this is a very, very, very nice comp. This will help you guys out a ton. We were working it earlier with the 10% append because Jason does have a charge skill on his third skill. It doesn't matter. He doesn't need it. We're actually perfectly fine. So again, do understand no skill requirements for Jason. This will be nice and easy. All right, for our party structure, let's start out with a front line of both Artorias and Jason, with waiver there in the first slot of the back line. Right now for our turn order, on turn 1, go ahead and activate Jason's skill 3, then do all of both Artoria's skills on Jason, bring him up to full charge, and he should be good here. But let's go ahead and swap out that Artoria for waiver already, and you should be fine to fire off the NP. Now he should have refunded back to 82%, so let's pop waiver's second and third skills here in turn 2 on Jason, and he should be good again. Let's fire the NP from Jason, and he'll easily handle everything in this wave too. Now in turn 3, let's go ahead and use the Plugsuit attack buff. Go ahead and pop waiver's last remaining skill, that should be skill 1 on Jason, and fire the NP one last time, where, like I said, Proto-Ku will live about 21% of the time with at most 7k. All right, this is going to be the graph I was talking about. This is all of your wave 1 alternatives here for round 2 of the 90 plus node. this is going to be just a whole heaping helping of a lot of people that can work. We are sort of assuming here double Castoria is your setup, so do understand if you're using some sort of other variant, definitely the numbers could be different from this, but we wanted to sort of showcase and highlight, look at all of the options. Now, all of these options might not work with all of the comps. Again, some comps just may have a different requirement in terms of damage output or something like that, maybe the turn 1 skill order, and so definitely not everything's going to work perfectly here. But your buster comps, there's definitely quite a few options here, and the ones that I particularly want to point out here are Circe and Sanzang are going to be great for this sort of thing. We did plot in an NP2 Circe that makes her clean kill. An NP1 can work. It'll leave about 20 something K there with double Castoria attack buffs on her. Just do understand, that's not going to be that crazy, because especially if you're utilizing them, you've got double Castoria in the comp, you've probably got another AoE DPS that's going to handle rounds 2 and 3 for you that should be effective either as an alter ego, a berserker, or again a caster. So carting out something like 20k, maybe even up to 30k with all the charismas flying around might not be that impossible, especially with a buster lead card from a buster MP. So that's really an advantage to using some of these units as opposed to the others. We do have some welfares in here. Just understand, because of welfares and the servant coin situation, you're not necessarily going to have a whole bunch of coins for them. So what we tried to do is we tried to say, hey, if you were one of those 20% chargers that could be effective, like Mecha Ellie, like Summer Jalter, you're going to have the capability to work here. But if you can't get the max depend on them because you don't have the coins, you can do the max depend on the other DPS, because that way you can split the Castoria charges to still make it work on turn 1. Remember, Castoria's targeted 20% charge skill is very nice. It has party-wide NP gain, so it doesn't necessarily have to be on the unit that's looping for it to work. And so you can move that around as long as it's still there to affect the party, you should be fine. So we tried to give you guys a little bit of flexibility on that. But again, there are going to be some scenarios where it's like, hey, maybe this is sort of needed in a specific order to work. But again, that should be sort of the takeaway of the welfares, is you don't have to have the append on them, but if you don't have it on them, you have to have it on someone else for the mana loading. Again, as we get down to the quick units here, the concern is obviously going to be, one, the amount of health remaining here. Again, we didn't, because they're both welfares, assume like anything higher than that like we did with Circe. Certainly here, that's going to be a concern. You should be able to card this out evenly. The issue, I would say, is that because both of these units are quick, you don't want to lead with the quick card if possible. Try to lead with a buster. If you don't have the buster, then certainly you're fine to lead with quick, but I'm not sure you'll have enough damage specifically on that. But again, that's where I would say, hey, if you have a buster card in the deck, lead with that, then do the NP, then hit them with the third card that's something else. That should make the amount of damage getting done to the target optimal, and it should be fine. As we get down here to our arts options here, we've got Seatonai is the first one. Seatonai works at NP1 actually rather well. The issue is if you want to make it work just with sort of overflow from the double Castorias, Seatonai has a 30% charge skill, so you're going to want to get her append, her mana loading append unlocked there. And especially at MP1, that means you're going to have to get her to bond 6. So again, that's something you're going to want to maybe get done ahead of the Lotto if you guys can. That way you don't get to this point and go, oh crap, right? So maybe even in the Lotto, if you're doing a lot on round 1, you might be able to backline her or something like that and use that to sort of bond her up. But it is what it is. You guys got some time, hopefully, and you guys should be able to make adjustments accordingly. Shiki Assassin can even work, even though it's neutral, because it's assassin on assassin. The issue is, again, going to be, do people have her? And again, just like our other welfares, we're going to say, hey, you can either have the append on her or someone else. Same thing here with Hoku Saber. Hoku Saber's a lot more recent. You guys should have gotten her from Summer 4. She'll actually be pretty decent. And again, you guys can see she's only going to leave something like 13k HP remaining, and she'll even clear some. So this is definitely a nice solution for that issue. Just make sure you guys tend to the skill levels as you needed. Kuro, aka Klo, can definitely be another option here if you guys manage to have her from the Prisma Cosmos event. And then Medea, we did put her on here because we knew people would ask if we didn't. Yes, she could work, but no, she's not our recommendation. That is a little bit too much health remaining, and this does include both Castoria attack ups. If you have a Grailed Medea or something like that, or you think you can get away with putting some of the Castoria arts ups on her rather than the DPS, go for it. But I'm going to tell you, we tried to make that work and we decided not to do that. That was not a good idea. So again, this is just an overview of all of the round 1 options, but I thought it'd be pretty informative for you guys to see, hey, for whatever the comps we show, there are multiple options for the 90 plus. Right now for our first of the 90 plus comps here. So again, this one's going to be utilizing double Castoria Circe for round 1 and Anastasia. Now do understand that the reason this one's probably going to be one of our worst ones is because we're requiring an MP3 Anastasia. You guys know I always try to keep the NP levels down on this stuff. Again, the reason being to make it a doable comp for the majority of you. But again, Anastasia is a permanent unit. Maybe you guys have her. And part of the reason that she's sort of going to be an MP3 requirement just has to do with the fact that, well, she doesn't have an NP interlude like a lot of the other casters do. She hasn't had really any strengthenings for her damage output or anything like that. So she's just going to kind of need it if you want to get away with this, but she is an option. She is a 50% charger, and refund's actually really good for her because of that. We are only going to be using an MP1 Circe here, so that means we're going to have 13k max remaining health. If you have a higher NP level Circe, this will definitely work. If you want to go with Sanzang, that can also work. Sanzang can even give NP gain to the party, so she can actually be optimal for certain setups. But again, just up to you. I think 13k is easily handleable with everybody in the party being a caster, especially with all the charismas flying around. Anastasia has one herself. So yeah, I don't think this is going to be too difficult. You should be able to handle just about everything. The real concern is probably going to come on wave 3 with Ushi Wakamaru living about 60% of the time with at most almost 24k HP. That again should still be cardable, but yeah, watch out there, especially if you have the arts card lead. You might want to put the buster ahead of it, or again, you just might want to try and select the best cards you can, maybe like a Brave Chain from Anastasia, in order to handle something like that. Especially at MP3, that's a little bit annoying that we still have that much health remaining, but it is what it is. So again, if this is the comp that you guys have, it is 6 CE, so you guys can run this and it should be fairly nice. All right, for our party structure here, let's start out with a front line of Circe, Anastasia, and Castoria, with Castoria on the next slot in the back line. All right, for our turn order here on turn 1, let's use all of the Castoria skills on Anastasia to get her up to 50%. Then let's go ahead and Plugsuit out that Castoria for the other Castoria in the back line. When she comes in, go ahead and use all of her skills now on Anastasia. That should bring her up to full. And go ahead and pop Circe skill 1 and 2. That should get her charged to full and throw a defense down on the enemy. From here, go ahead and use Anastasia's skill 2. That's her charisma. And then fire off Circe's NP. And again, it should live about 65% of the time with 13k HP remaining at most. All right, now in turn 2, Anastasia's fully charged. Let's just go ahead and fire off her NP. You don't have to do anything here and she'll easily handle the wave. Now for turn 3, let's go ahead and use Anastasia's skill 1 and 3. That should charge her back up to full and give her her arts up. Go ahead and use the Mystic Code's attack buff right now, and then go ahead and use Anastasia's NP one last time. Again, just watch out for Ushi Wakamaru and try to choose the best cards you can, because you're going to be dealing with about 24k HP at an NP3 Ana. Right now we have a Davinci caster comp. This one's only going to require NP2, but remember Davinci caster is limited, so not really gonna have an easy time getting your hands on her. Sanzang is gonna be who we're gonna go with here, and that's because Davinci has a little bit of issues with refund. Davinci does have charge per turn in her kit. She does have a 50% charge skill, but that is going to be a concern, and we're going to try to make sure she gets the most that she possibly can. So Sanzang skill 3 is going to help with this a lot. We don't have a requirement on it, but again, the beefier the better, so if you guys already have it leveled up, that's fine. This is an NP1 Sanzang, because the Castoria, since we're using double Castoria here's overflow charge should get her up to full. We don't necessarily require rank 10 on the first skill for charge, it's actually for damage. As you guys can see, she's going to leave 33k HP remaining just at NP1, so that is going to be a concern here. But again, we feel like with all of the charismas flying around from Castoria, and the fact that everybody here is a caster and your lead card here will be a buster, you guys should be able to handle this. Again, if you have a nicer Sanzang, you might even clean clear, so this will definitely help you out in that regard. But this should be a nice and easy comp. This one's not necessarily going to be our recommendation though, because of all this. Again, even with wave 3 at NP2 of Davinci, you're still going to have about 24k HP remaining. So this one's definitely going to be a little bit spicier, but just up to you. If you want to try and min-max, this can be a comp that can help you. Again, it will be 6 CE. We are going to require a maxed append on Davinci caster. That is just going to be necessary in order to free up some charge for her later. But again, I do think this can be pretty good if you have an NP2. A bit of a note here, our slide is wrong. We do require rank 10 on Davinci's first skill here for damage output. We don't require any rank on the second skill. It is the 10% charge per turn skill, but it's flat, so it doesn't scale with the skill leveling, only the healing does. So you don't have to level that one, but we did miss this on the graphic here. All right, so for our party structure here, let's start out by having Sanzang, Davinci caster, and one of the Castorias on the front line, and then let's put the other Castoria in the back line in the fourth slot. Right now for turn 1, let's go ahead and use all of the Castoria's skills on Davinci caster, and then Plugsuit out that Castoria for the other Castoria. From here, only activate skills 2 and 3 on Davinci from Castoria, and then go ahead and pop Sanzang's first skill as well as Davinci Caster's second skill. That'll get her the charge per turn. From here, go ahead and NP with Sanzang. Again, watch out for the health remaining here. Thankfully, you've got a Buster lead card, so choose the best cards you can to try and get through this wave. You're only using NP1 Sanzang. All right, now on turn 2, let's go ahead and activate Sanzang's third skill here, and then go ahead and fire off Davinci's NP. That should get her the refund that she needs, and you should easily handle the wave. All right, now on turn 3, go ahead and activate Davinci's skill 1 and 3. Hopefully you get the NP damage proc, but we assumed that you didn't. And then activate Castoria's skill 1 now to get her up to full charge, and then go ahead and use the Plugsuit attack buff, and you're finally good to fire off Davinci's NP. If you did get failure, Ushi Wakamaru will live 61% of the time with at worst 24k, that should still be within the cardable range. Right now for this one, this should be a relatively easy one as long as you guys have Sanzang and a Castoria of your own. This is going to be our 6CE Gong variant. Again, appends are really helping us out here. They're freeing up 20% charge for Gong to be used later, so we are going to require you guys to have a max Gong mana loading for this. We don't require any rank on the Gong skills, but we do require the Sanzang to have a rank 10 first and third skill because we are going to need the NP gain to help Gong out. Again, you guys can see refund is very tight. 69% is the exact amount he needs, and it will round up with the 30% charge skill from Castoria, but that is definitely spicy. This is a minimum threshold calculation. We always calculate refund sort of with the minimum thresholds. That's the whole max remaining column as well here, because again, while we give you guys the average damage, we always assume minimal damage to make sure that the comp works perfectly every time for you guys with no risk of failure. So again, the good news is even an NP1 Sanzang here leaves nothing thanks to Gong's third skill, so you guys should be good for that. And Gong himself, due to the damage bonus he has in the event by being a low star, definitely helps him out here. So this is, again, a very, very nice option for people. Right now, for our party structure, let's start out with the front line of Sanzang, Gong, and Castoria, with the other Castoria on the back line. Right now for our turn order here, let's go ahead and use all of the Castoria skills on Gong to bring them up to 70% with the mana loading. Go ahead and Plugsuit out that Castoria for the other Castoria. Pop Castoria's skill 2 and 3 on Gong here. Then go ahead and use Gong's second skill to bring himself up to full charge. Also make sure to use his third skill on Sanzang. And now let's go ahead and pop Sanzang's first and third skills to give her the charge that she needs, as well as Gong the refund that he needs. Go ahead and fire off your MP with Sanzang and she'll clean clear even at NP1. Now on turn 2, there's nothing you need to do other than Gong NP one more time. And now in turn 3, let's go ahead and use Castoria's skill 1 to get Gong back to full. Go ahead and use your Plugsuit attack buff here, and then go ahead and fire Gong's NP one last time, and he'll easily clean clear this wave as well. All right, next up here, guys, we have our Circe Kiara variant of this comp. Again, Kiara, we're going to be using Alter Ego Kiara. Do not confuse this with Summer Kiara. He actually has advantage, again, against this stuff by virtue of being an alter ego, so that is definitely nice. We are going to be using NP2 of her. Kiara is not really known for her NP damage, and you guys can see basically with wave 3, even an NP2 still being slightly a problem there. But again, we still feel like with all of the attack ups here, this should be approachable, this should be doable. If you end up in a 4-turn occasionally, just due to a max roll, it's not the end of the world. You could definitely have worse comps than this. So if If you have a nicer Kiara, certainly that'll help shore that up, but again, we did sort of require NP2 here, especially to help out with the refund issue. So again, Circe here is also going to be a concern in the front wave. We just don't have a whole lot to give her. Kiara's not really going to help her out at all, unlike say like a Gong or someone might. But again, I think you guys can see that yes, at 23k for NP1 and only a rank 9 second skill, yeah, I think that's actually pretty good, and you actually should be able to card that out if you're fine with carding. If not, maybe go with something more secure and try to make sure that it's high enough damage that it can basically one-shot moving runway here. Again, another concern here is going to be having your own Castoria. I'm really trying to point that out to people because, like I said, she's sort of this enabler of 6 CE comps. I've said that before, I've said it time and time again, but do keep that in mind, guys, that again, with her banner coming up, you guys are really going to want to take a crack at her and see if you can get her. All right, for the party structure here, start out with Circe and Kiara and one of the Castorias on your front line. Then go ahead and put a Castoria on your back line. All right, now for the turn order, let's start out by using all of the first Castoria skills on Kiara. From here, go ahead and Plugsuit her out for the other Castoria, and then do all of the Castoria skills on Kiara again. Now go ahead and pop Circe's first and second skills to get her the charge that she needs and put a defense down on the enemy, and fire off Circe's NP for the first time. Again, make sure you choose good cards here, but since you have a Buster card lead, you should handle the moving runway. Now in turn 2, let's go ahead and pop Kiara's skill 3 to get her the NP Jin that she needs and fire off her NP since she's full. And now in turn 3, let's go ahead and use Kiara's skill 1 and 2 on Ushi Wakamaru, and then go ahead and pop the Mystic Code attack buff, and then fire off Kiara's NP one last time. Make sure you choose good cards here, because with an NP2 Kiara, Ushi can live with up to 35k HP. Alright, next up we have the Murasaki variant of the same comp here, and again this one is going to be using an NP2 Murasaki. We still require your own Castoria, and we are going to be using an MP1 Circe, which obviously leaves some max health remaining. But again, we tried to go as low as we possibly could with the requirements here, so you can certainly use something better. The concern here is going to be Ushi Wakamaru here in wave 3 with her living 62% of the time, with at most 24.5k. Again, with everybody being a caster in the comp, this should be cardable. Just pay attention, watch out. You might want to do something different. You might want to use a better comp if you have someone stronger than this. It's just up to you to determine if you want to go with something that's the bare minimum threshold, or if you want to go with something that's potentially above and beyond the call. Just up to you. Again, this will be using Plugsuit as we are going to be having to rotate, but again, just pay attention to the skill requirements here, because that is what we use to calculate the comp. So if you have something different, you might want to adjust accordingly. All right, so for our party structure here, let's start out by using a front line of Circe, Murasaki, and Castoria. Then in the back line, go ahead and use your other Castoria. All right, now on turn 1, pop all of the Castoria skills on Murasaki Caster, and then go ahead and Plugsuit her out for the other Castoria, and then pop all of that Castoria skills also on Murasaki. Go ahead and use Circe's skill 1 and skill 2 now. That should get her the charge she needs and slap a defense down on the moving runway. And then go ahead and fire off Circe's NP here on turn 1. Again, remember to choose good cards and it should help you out. Now in turn 2, you should be ready to go ahead and just NP with Murasaki, so go ahead and fire that one off. You should easily refund back above 90%. Now in turn 3, go ahead and activate Murasaki's first and second skills to get the defense down on the enemy, as well as activate the charge skill and NP damage up for her. And then go ahead and use the Plugsuit attack buff on Murasaki now and fire off the NP one last time. Again, remember to choose good cards, because Ushi can live with up to 24.5k HP remaining at NP2. Alright, next up we've got the Scheherazade version of the comp. Again, this is also going to be using NP2. This is sort of our go-to, as Ushi just has quite a bit of health here and is sort of requiring NP2 out of a lot of these casters. We're using an NP1 Circe in wave 1 here to sort of lower the requirement as much as possible. But again, if you have something that's a little bit more consistent and clean clears and saves you some carding, go with that. Because again, it's not like Circe's providing any benefit to anyone else here. So again, up to you to determine how you want to handle wave 1. We do require you to have your own Castoria. We do require max skills on them, and we are using a rank 10 Plugsuit in the calculation. So again, keep in mind that if you don't have that, your requirements might be a little bit higher on other areas. Scheherazade's refund, just like Murasaki's though, is very good, so they're pretty comparable as to how this one works. We are also only requiring a rank 10 on the first skill here for Scheherazade. Again, the real concern is going to come with Ushiwakamaru living 82% of the time with at most 31k. This one's definitely a little bit spicy, especially with a lead arts card. You guys are maybe going to want to try to pick the best cards you can, maybe try to lead with the Buster card if you got it, and hope that with all of the buffs flying around in this comp that you have what you need to handle Ushiwakamaru. Alright, for our party structure, let's start out with a front line of Circe, Scheherazade, and Castoria, with Castoria on the back line. Now for our turn order in turn 1 here, let's go ahead and use all Castoria skills on Scheherazade. Go ahead and Plugsuit out that Castoria for the other Castoria, and then go ahead and use all of that Castoria skills on Scheherazade as well. Now go ahead and pop Circe's skill 1 and 2 to get her the charge that she needs and put a defense down on moving runway. And fire off Circe's NP, and you should easily handle moving runway if you have good cards, but be careful, he can live with a lot. Now in turn 2, just go ahead and fire off Scheherazade's NP. Again, you should be perfectly able to do so. And in turn 3 now, let's go ahead and activate Scheherazade's first skill to get her the arts up and the charge that she needs to get back to full. Go ahead and activate the Plugsuit attack buff, and let's fire off her NP one last time now. Be careful, make sure you choose good cards, because again, Ushiwakamaru can live with up to 31k HP remaining. Alright, now for the Space Ishtar comp. So again, I think if you guys are staring at this and you're used to staring at our graphics, you're immediately getting your eyes drawn to that right there, and you're going, oh crap, that is an NP5. Guys, the reason we're showing this to you is just to show you guys that yes, it is doable, but again, when you start looking at the maximum threshold remaining, unless this is a Grailed Gold Fode Space Ishtar again, that is going to be really hard to overcome. Okay, I'm not going to say you can't. I'm not going to say you can't get lucky cards, that the roll could be good for you and you could overcome it, but do understand that this is sort of rough, and this is what we were trying to point out. Yes, this is a Space Ishtar where the third skill fails, which will only happen 20% of the time, but we always try to show you guys that this is the reality you could be facing. So just again, if you're confident in your Space Ishtar and you think you can pull it off, go ahead and do that, but keep in mind that yes, this could be a very harsh reality for you. So again, we wanted to show the Space Ishtar comp here. I'll go ahead and walk you guys through it just like a normal comp, but understand she's not going to be that good for this node, for this round, because of this sort of thing. There are much easier solutions to it. You can't really use Ozzy to bail yourself out because wave 1 is assassins, so I mean, maybe if you had a super powered Ozzy somehow at NP5, you might be able to, and then you'd be able to secure the Space Ishtar proc for the third skill, but like I said, that's sort of grasping at straws, and there's just much easier comps to do. We are going to be using just an NP1 Circe here with a rank 9 middle skill for her defense down. You can certainly shore this up if you have a higher NP level of her or someone else. But again, due to the fact that Ishtar has charisma, that can actually help Circe and her ability to kill here, only leaving 8k compared to some of the other comps. So that's the silver lining. You do have to have your own Castoria to pull this off, so again, up to you, but you should be okay here in terms of refund, even with proc failure of the third skill to get the arts up. So again, up to you if you really want to embark upon this comp, but like I said, we felt the need to show you because we knew people would ask. All right, for the party structure, you're going to want to start out with a front line of Circe, Space Ishtar, and Castoria, with the other Castoria being in the first slot of the back line. Now for the turn order on turn 1, let's go ahead and use all of Castoria's skills on Space Ishtar, and then go ahead and Plugsuit her out and bring in the other Castoria. From here, go ahead and use all of her skills on Space Ishtar. And now go ahead and activate Circe's skill 1 and skill 2. Again, activate Space Ishtar skill 1 here as well to give her the charisma, and then fire off Circe's NP, and she should pretty easily handle moving runway. You might have to card a little. Now in turn 2, Space Ishtar should be ready, so just go ahead and fire off her NP again. And now in turn 3, let's go ahead and activate Space Ishtar's second and third skills. Make sure you choose arts with the second skill, and then go ahead and activate the Mystic Code attack buff here, And then fire off Spishtar's NP one last time, but again, hopefully you didn't get failure and it should be handled a little bit easier. But if you did, she can live with up to 38k HP remaining. So try to get a Spishtar Brave Chain. Alright, and now for our last comp. This is going to be the Sieg comp. This one's going to be fairly easy. We do calculate it with all of Sieg's skills at rank 10. You might be able to get away with a little bit less, but the real concern here is actually going to be wave 3. Looking a lot like the Spishtar comp, huh? And the justification for this and why it is this way is, if you guys want to think about it, we required NP2 of a lot of the other casters to shore this number up. Typically, your welfares at NP5 are stronger than an NP1 caster, but not necessarily stronger than an NP2. So they live sort of in the gray area right between. And that's, again, as you guys can see, NP2 was more of the requirements here, and it's why he's ending up leaving so much. So again, he doesn't really have any big advantage here over the third wave, so that is another issue. It's not like Wakamaru is a dragon. So that is going to be one of the concerns, but certainly Sieg can be helpful here, and you might be able to have someone, especially for your first wave clear, that could maybe give something to Sieg to help out his damage prospects. But again, it's just up to you, since Sieg doesn't help Circe either. She's what we required as sort of the minimum threshold. Again, you're going to get used to seeing that 23k number like we keep showing. We do require you to have your own Castoria for this, and we are using a rank 10 Plugsuit, so certainly one of the other ways you guys could help this out would be to level up Sieg's drop CE some, especially if it's an MLB already by round 2. That can certainly help you out if you manage to level it. Try to get a little bit more attack power out of it, though it is split stats, so it's up to you. Maybe use one of the CEs that you leveled to 100 from a prior year. That might also save you. Just, again, up to you to decide how you want to try and stretch this comp if your only solution here is Sieg. All right, for our party structure here, let's go ahead and start out with Circe, Sieg, and Castoria in the front line, with the other Castoria in the back line. Now for our turn order, on turn 1, go ahead and use all of the Castoria skills on Sieg. Then go ahead and Plugsuit out that Castoria for the other one in the back line, bring her in, and use all of her skills as well on Sieg. That'll bring him up to full charge. Now let's go ahead and activate Circe's skill 1 and skill 2. That should bring her to full charge and put a defense down on the moving runway. And fire off Circe's NP. Try to pick the best cards you can if you're only using an NP1, because it can live with up to 24k HP remaining. Now for turn 2, go ahead and just fire off Sieg's MP. Should be good to go for that one, and he should refund pretty much back to full. Now in turn 3, go ahead and activate Sieg's skill 2, and then activate the skill 3 if you somehow didn't make it to 100%. And then go ahead and use the Mystic Code attack buff here and fire off Sieg's MP one last time. Again, pick the best cards you can. Maybe try to lead with a Buster card if you can, but Sieg does put defense down on the enemy, so it's up to you to determine how you want to do that. All right, next up, we've got some triple support variants for you guys. We understand these are going to be a little bit more in terms of requirements. We tried to stay away from these when possible, but they are some of the better comps for this node, so just keep that in mind. If you have certain DPS that are going to be capable of handling all 3 waves, aka casters in most of these cases, this is definitely an option for you guys. It is still 6 CE, it does still use Plugsuit. It's not necessarily going to be faster, it just might be easier in terms of the requirements for the NP level, so keep that in mind as we go through this. So up first here, you guys can see we actually have a double Castoria NeroBride. Again, we're only requiring rank 10 on the first 2 skills because NeroBride doesn't have the upgrade to her 3rd skill yet. This is going to require an NP2 here, and we do kind of require you guys to have the skills leveled on Anastasia. But again, as you guys can see, it's actually pretty nice as we're managing to get away with basically only 10k remaining on Wakamaru. Now, if I remember correctly, this Anastasia one is a little bit weird in terms of the refund, aka you actually got a pre-card with Anastasia in order to get to 101%. Otherwise, she'll end up just shy at 98%. Be very careful on that. You probably want to pre-card one of the low health enemies, one of the attendees here in wave 2, and I would recommend making sure that you pre-card about 9k there. Do not try to pre-card with a super buffed arts card. That might actually end up killing one of them, and then you'll just lose out entirely on the refund from them. So my recommendation here is to just make sure you pre-card just enough to get a little bit more in the overkill hits, and then that should get you to that 101. So that is going to be the only major gimmick with this one, but otherwise you can get away with NP2. If you have NP3 or higher, you might be able to get away without the pre-card, so that's just up to you. But again, the damage requirements here didn't seem that bad, so that's why we included this. Right, for your party composition here, you guys are going to want to start out with a front line of NeroBride, Anastasia, and Castoria, with the other Castoria coming in on your back line. Now here on turn 1, let's go ahead and start out by using all Castoria skills on Anastasia. That should bring her up to 50% charge, so from there, go ahead and Plugsuit out that Castoria for the other one in your back line. Now here, I want you guys to go ahead and use Castoria's second and third skills on Anastasia, and from there, go ahead and use NeroBride's skill 1 and skill 2 on Anastasia. At this point, go ahead and pop Anastasia's skill 2, that's her charisma, and fire off your NP for the first time. Now in turn 2, go ahead and use Castoria's first skill and Anna's third skill to bring her back up to full. You guys should pre-card any enemy for 9k, and then go ahead and NP here, and you should be fine. You should get 101% refund, so just make sure you get that pre-card in. Now in turn 3, go ahead and activate your Plugsuit attack buff. Go ahead and use Anna's first skill at this point and fire off the NP one last time. Be careful of Ushi Wakamaru living about a quarter of the time with at most 11k HP remaining. Right now for the Scheherazade version of the prior comp there with Anastasia. Again, we're only requiring NP2, but thanks to Scheherazade's natively good NP gain, we don't have to care nearly as much about pre-carding. That is to say, Scheherazade should be fine and should easily overkill on the refund here on wave 2 without the need of a pre-card. Again, this is going to be utilizing double Castoria and Waver, so you will have to have your own Waver and your own Castoria, and you can use someone stronger than Waver in these cases. You can try to get away with someone like NeroBride or potentially even Reines. Just keep in mind that they will both be stronger and a little bit rarer, so that's why we lowered the requirement here to Waver. Again, this just sort of made sense. Yeah, the 28k here in wave 3 can look a little bit spicy, especially if you don't get the right card setup. But we felt this one was at least doable at NP2, and again, especially considering we're only using Waver, you guys might have better options. So this is just sort of the minimum requirements to make this comp work. You can definitely go a little bit harder. Good news is, especially for Shez, we only care about her first skill. Again, it's the only one that really provides attack power here, so it's really going to help us out. It's actually an arts up, but again, it should be nice for her and relatively low requirement as long as you have the required supports for this. All right, so for your party structure here, go ahead and start out with a front line of Scheherazade, Castoria, and Waver. Make sure the other Castoria is in the first slot of your back line. Now for the turn order, go ahead and activate all of the Castoria skills on Scheherazade, and then go ahead and Plugsuit out that Castoria for the other Castoria in your back line. From here, go ahead and activate all of that Castoria skills on Scheherazade, and that should bring her up to full charge. Should be good at this point to go ahead and fire off Scheherazade's NP, and at NP2 she should handle moving runway 100% of the time. Now here on turn 2, go ahead and activate all of the Waver skills on Scheherazade. That should bring her up to about 75% charge, and then go ahead and activate Scheherazade's first skill, which is both a charge and arts up. Again, at this point, you can go ahead and NP, and she should refund over 100%. Now here in turn 3, all you gotta do is activate the Plugsuit attack buff on the party, and you should be good to fire off Scheherazade's last NP. Just make sure you pick good cards, because again, you can have Ushi Wakamaru living with up to 28k. Alright, now if you guys remember what I was saying earlier about Space Ishtar not handling wave 3 very well, again you guys can see the difference in using a triple support and using Space Ishtar for all 3 waves here, as she gets stronger with every single NP thanks to her overcharge effect. Yeah, we still leave 34k HP here, but we're only using Waver, and again, the fact that we're able to use triple supports here is definitely helping out. So again, this is just sort of making Space Ishtar stronger and leaning into her normal niche. So this is going to make the Space Ishtar comps a lot more approachable if you guys manage to have your own Castoria and your own at least Waver. Again, range should work here. Bride might work, it might depend on the refund. It's just going to be a thing that you might have to test. But again, we tried to make this as low of possible requirements here. We do require a 20% unlocked and maxed out mana loading. That's going to be a little bit annoying for some people, but again, at NP2 here, you guys should be fine in terms of having enough coins. So don't worry too much about that, but this should make the comp doable. Again, thanks to Space Ishtar's natural extra card strength there off the back end of her NP, Wave 3 shouldn't be too bad if you can secure a Space Ishtar Brave Chain, or again if you just get the right caster cards to move you through this. As long as you don't get both a min roll and bad cards here, this comp should work. It also does assume failure of Space Ishtar's third skill. That is something we always calculate unless we have reason to otherwise. This means that there is no arts proc on Space Ishtar's third skill included in these calculations for refund or damage. Again, the reason that's important is because 20% of the time it can fail, so we went with the 1 in 5 scenario, in which case you get the worst possible solution. So you're only going to encounter this not only when you get a low damage roll, not only when you get bad cards, but also when the third skill fails. So as long as you don't get all three of those things combining, this comp should be very doable and a much better solution than some of the other ones. And now for the party structure, you're going to want to go ahead and start out with a front line of Space Ishtar, Castoria, and Waver, with the other Castoria being in your back line. Right now on turn 1, let's go ahead and activate all of the Castoria skills on Space Ishtar. That should bring her up to 70% due to the maxed out mana loading, and then go ahead and Plugsuit out that Castoria for the other Castoria on the back line. As that Castoria comes in, go ahead and use her second and third skills on Space Ishtar. That should bring her up to 90%. And then go ahead and use Waver's skill 3, that's his attack up, and that should bring her up to 100%. Go ahead and activate Space Ishtar's skill 1, and then you should be fine to fire off her first NP here. Again, now on turn 2, she should be at 20%, so let's go ahead and activate Castoria's skill 1, and that should bring her up to 50. From here, go ahead and activate Space Ishtar's skill 3, that'll bring her back up to full, and fire off the NP one last time. Now here in turn 3, let's go ahead and activate Waver's skill 1, that should bring her back up to full, and then go ahead and use the Plugsuit attack buff here, as well as Space Ishtar's second skill. Make sure you select arts, and then fire off the NP the final time here. And the only thing you gotta worry about is Ushiwakamaru if all the stars align, at worst having 34.5k HP. Alright, so now we've got a Nitocris variant here, still using double Castoria and NeroCaster handling the middle wave. So we're actually going to be doubling up with an NP2 Nitocris and using that to handle both the first and the third waves. Maybe not conventional, maybe not what we thought, but again, due to the double Castoria buffs, she's actually able to hit well beyond her capabilities here. Now again, as you guys can see, Ushiwakamaru, even just at NP2 here, is only going to have about 11k HP remaining. That's not bad, this is actually pretty nice, and about 74% of the time she'll just die outright. So this is definitely a nice easy comp if you guys manage to have yourself an NP2 Nitocris and an NP1 NeroCaster. You're obviously going to have max skills a little bit here, but that is just sort of the way this one works. Thankfully, Nitocris is pretty easy, especially since we're not death procking anything. We don't need the first skill leveled up. Instead, all you guys need is the second skill at rank 8. Alright, so for your party structure, you guys are going to want to go ahead and start out with NeroCaster, Nitocris, and Castoria, with the other Castoria in the back line. Alright, now here on turn 1, make sure you go ahead and use all the Castoria skills on Nitocris to bring her up to 50%. From here, go ahead and Plugsuit out that Castoria for, yes, the other Castoria in your back line. And you got it. Go ahead and use all the skills again from Castoria on Nitocris. Should bring her up to full charge. From here, go ahead and use NeroCaster's skill 3 on Nitocris. It's targetable and it should get her a lot more attack up. And then fire off the Nitocris NP and she should easily handle moving runway. Now here on turn 2, go ahead and activate Nero skill 1 and skill 2. And then go ahead and fire off the NP when you're ready and you'll easily handle this wave even at NP 1. And now here in turn 3, go ahead and activate your Plugsuit attack buff. Go ahead and use Nitocris' second skill, that's her charge skill, and you should be ready to NP one more time, again with Ushiwakamaru living only 26% of the time, with at most 11k HP. And now for an even more free-to-play variant of the prior comp here, it's again going to be double Castoria, Nitocris, and Nitocris, but instead we're going to be using Paracelsus here, and as a result of that, we're going to actually be able to utilize Paracelsus' middle skill, which is a party-wide arts up, to the benefit of Nitocris. Unfortunately, that does mean we have to step this up to NP3, so that's the aspect in which this sort of differs. If you have a stronger Nito, but you didn't have another good, say, Umu caster, someone that could put a buff on Nitocris to help out, here you go, Paracelsus is an option for you. But again, you guys can see it was NP2 Nito in the prior one, now it's NP3. So yeah, this is going to leave about 24k HP. Again, you should be good if you get Nito cards, or really just due to the fact that there's all sorts of charismas flying around this one and the Paracelsus party-wide arts up. You guys should be good as long as you get arts cards. But again, just keep in mind, this may not work out in your favor if you get totally screwed on the damage roll and the cards at the same time. Otherwise, though, this should be a fairly stable comp. Again, it's actually sort of abusing the fact that Artoria is as strong as she is, but then also the fact that Paracelsus can handle our middle wave for us. So that's working in our favor and allowing us to use a triple support setup here. Right now, for your party structure, go ahead and start out with Paracelsus, Nitocris, and Artoria on the front line, with the other Artoria in the back line. For our turn order here, let's go ahead and use all the first Artoria skills on Nitocris. That should bring her up to 50% charge. From here, go ahead and Plugsuit out that Artoria for the other Artoria on the back line. As she comes in, go ahead and use all of her skills on Nitocris, again bringing her up to full charge. Now here, make sure you go ahead and utilize Paracelsus's skill 2. Again, this should give the party-wide arts up. And go ahead and fire off Nitocris's first NP, and she should easily handle the moving runway. Now here in turn 2, go ahead and activate Paracelsus's first skill, and then you should be good to fire the NP. He should easily handle this wave. And now here on turn 3, go ahead and use your party-wide attack buff from the Plugsuit, and then go ahead and use Nitocris's second skill to bring her charge back up to full, and fire off the NP one last time. Again, just be careful of Ushi Wakamaru. She's going to live with up to 24k HP, so make sure you choose good cards. Alright, now for the Sieg variant of the triple support setup. Again, this one makes Sieg a lot more doable than the double, but we did here use Reines. Just understand that you probably can get away with waiver, just you'll have to card a little bit more because you're going to lose 10% attack power off of Sieg. So that is one of the concerns. We felt like Reines was a little bit of a safer recommendation, but if you don't have her, feel free to try waiver if there's nothing else that you have that works. Again, we are using an MLB drop C here, so that does mean that it is going to be assumed to be level 15 for some slight attack power, but otherwise you don't have to worry too much about damage output, and certainly you could step this down to 5C if it just wasn't working for you. Yes, we do assume all of Sieg's skills at rank 10. The one that you bare minimum probably got to have at rank 10 is going to be the charge skill, as well as you might want to try to get his arts up and his NP gain to 9 if you're trying to stretch this on a budget. But again, 10 is going to be our standard recommendation for this. Same thing for Reines' middle skill, as well as both of Artoria's damage dealing skills and her middle charge skill. So again, I think everything here is going to be really nice. You just got to watch out here on wave 1 and wave 3 because you might have to card a little bit, but otherwise refund's not really an issue in Sieg comps. Most of the time he handles this stuff very well. All right, let's go ahead and start out with a party structure of Sieg, Artoria, and Reines on the front line, with the other Artoria in the back line. Right now for the turn order, here on turn 1, let's go ahead and use all of Artoria's skills on Sieg. Should bring them up to 50%. From here, go ahead and Plugsuit out that Artoria for the other Artoria in your back line. Now go ahead and use all Artoria skills again on Sieg. That should bring them up to full charge. From here, you can go ahead and activate Sieg skill 1, that should be his NP gain, and then fire off Sieg's NP for the first time. Again, just watch out for the moving runway to live with at most 12.5k HP. Now here in turn 2, go ahead and use all Reines skills on Sieg, or waiver if you're using him, and at this point go ahead and activate Sieg skill 3, that should bring him up above 100% charge. And it should again allow him to NP, so let's go ahead and fire that off, and he should refund over 100% himself right here. Now in turn 3, go ahead and use the Plugsuit attack buff on Sieg, and go ahead and use Sieg skill 2, that's his arts up, and then fire off the NP one last time. Again, just watch out for Ushi Wakamaru to live about half of the time, with at most 21k HP remaining. Hey guys, thank you all for watching. This is going to be it for the round 2 comps. Again, we're going to get the round 3 comps to you guys shortly. I think you guys saw there's quite a bit more to do for this round than there was for the prior round. Again, that was a pretty good reflection of just sort of the change in difficulty of the nodes, as well as the classes that were in them. But again, I hope you guys found something that you could do, something that you could run. We tried to make it as easy on you as we could. Tried to make it so that, again, welfares were used and mana loadings weren't used too much. So again, I hope you guys enjoyed this, and I'll see you guys for the next video later.